The Tab S9 Ultra is not the same as the Tab S8 Ultra. It adds some much appreciated performance improvements, whilst it also retains the charisma and charm of the Tab S8 Ultra from just a year and a half ago. Today, we're going to look at every single way that the Tab S9 Ultra is better than the Tab S8 Ultra. Let's go. The Tab S9 Ultra is here in my hands, and today I'm going to share with you every single way I believe this is an upgrade over the Tab S8 Ultra. Now, if you have a Tab S8 Ultra, should you run out and trade it in and upgrade to the Tab S8 Ultra? I'll let you decide at the end of this video in the comments whether you think, after I've told you everything, this is an upgrade worth getting over the Tab S8 Ultra. For this video, we've got 3 categories. We're going to break down all of the improvements: design, performance, and software. Starting with design. Design-wise, it looks the same. Other than the fresh new color, I've got this beige color here, which I'm very much in love with. And this new camera array at the back, which you can see is a drastic difference from the Tab S8 Ultra. You wouldn't really be able to tell them apart, especially from the front. But we aren't here to talk about similarities, because to be honest, we'll be here all day. What is new here is that the Tab S9 Ultra is now IP68 dust and water resistant, which, if you ask me, is long overdue. And I honestly don't know how they haven't been able to incorporate this before in the past. What's really great about this is tablets are made to be used on the go. They are a mobile device, so you want to be able to use them in all different situations and scenarios. So having IP68 means that you could take this outdoors, it can rain, and you don't have to stress about it. And what's really cool is the S Pen also works when the screen is wet. So you can have water dropping on the screen, you can still be taking your notes. Neat. As I said, the rest of the physical design though, from the front, it's the same. The only way you can tell these two models apart is the metal frame around the border of the display. Obviously last year I had the darker color, this year I've got the lighter one. And that's how you can tell them apart. And that material as well is upgraded to armor aluminum. So that's something. As I said, at the back, you do have that new camera array with the new S Pen housing. So that is a difference in terms of design. From the back, you will be able to tell them apart much easier. The display's got some really nice improvements as well. Last year, with the Tab S8 Ultra, it was fixed at 120 Hz. There was no adaptive refresh rate on the panel that was on the Tab S8 Ultra. This year, whilst it also gets a brighter display, so that's going to make using it outdoors a lot nicer, especially now that you've got this IP68, the outdoor situation becomes a whole lot more viable. The Tab S9 Ultra gets the adaptive refresh rate. The adaptive refresh rate means it will be able to vary its refresh rate depending on the content that you've got on the screen. That will definitely help improve battery efficiency, but we'll get to that in a moment. The other thing from a design standpoint to compare here is the keyboard. I did buy the new Tab S9 Ultra keyboard. I was really hoping that I could use the setup from the Tab S8 Ultra. I was told that wasn't going to be the case. Just for fun, I thought I'd try and do a bit of swapsies. I tested the keyboards out. I put the Tab S8 Ultra keyboard onto the Tab S9 Ultra. It came up with a warning saying it's might not work. It's not made for this version. But to my surprise, it worked perfectly. Just the keyboard part. That lined up, everything was able to work. The mouse, the keys, had no issues. Where it came into a bit of a problem was when I tried to put the back cover on. As I said, it's got a new camera design at the back, which means that last year's cover doesn't fit over the new design at the back. You will need the new one. Just for fun also, I tried doing it the other way. I put the Tab S9 Ultra keyboard on a Tab S8 Ultra, and that didn't even register at all. I was a little curious as to why that was the case, because on the surface, there is no design changes to the keyboards whatsoever. But I took a bit of a deep dive into the model codes on both the keyboards, and they are different. The Tab S8 Ultra also has a power of 800 milliamp hours, which means I think that's going to draw power, because the Tab S9 Ultra, of course, is going to draw power. The Tab S9 Ultra, that's got 500 milliamp hour. What I can conclude from that is that the Tab S9 Ultra keyboard is actually going to be more efficient to use and draw less from the device itself. That's probably also why it wasn't working on the Tab S8 Ultra, maybe because the power rating was a little bit different. The lengths I go to. In terms of design differences with this keyboard, it is absolutely still designed to be used on a flat surface. Don't go using this any other way. It is a flat surface keyboard only. The S Pen hasn't really got that much of a redesign. It's very minimal if there is. Only big noticeable change with the S Pen is that it now can charge either direction. So with the Tab S8 Ultra last year, you could only put it in one way for it to charge. This year, put it on both ways on the back, and both ways will make it charge. Unless you're using those air gestures, you don't need it charged because the S Pen will function without battery anyway. When we move on to performance, this is where the Tab S9 Ultra truly pulls away from the Tab S8 Ultra. And it's not even in the area you might think. If you start with the speakers on the Tab S9 Ultra are so much louder and so much clearer. I was blown away by the difference. I thought the Tab S8 Ultra was loud and good for entertainment purposes, but the Tab S9 Ultra is just a class above. And you could hear that in the difference between the two devices here.
Same situation that I just showed you. Let me take you for a journey here that I've been myself using foldables for the first time, exploring what the Fold 5 brings to the table. Let's take it for a spin. I'm Alex and I do down to earth tech videos. To me, the Fold 5 has a really tough act to follow.
Truly adds to the experience of using the Tab S9 Ultra as your personal media device, because you won't need external speakers plugged in. You can just rely on the speakers that are on board. The next two performance updates really tie in together quite nicely. The first is in the bump in RAM. You do get base of 12 gig now. You can extend that up to 16 with the right configuration. Last year I had the 8 gig 128 gig version of the Tab S8 Ultra. I didn't really notice it, but I do appreciate more RAM. And with the intended use of this tablet to be productivity heavy focus, 12 gigabyte of RAM is much better than 8. It's just going to be better in that sense. All Ultra devices should be a minimum of 12. But downright, the biggest change here with performance is the processor. We talk about it a lot. Samsung for the last few generations before this year, incremental at best when it came to speed improvements. And a lot of that was down to the processors they were using and the process line they were being manufactured on. This year, things just took this drastic upturn in performance improvements, both in efficiency and in battery. As usual, I don't do speed tests. I just don't think that they are necessary in terms of like benchmarking, because whilst they give you a picture of what it's capable of, you need to experience the day-to-day stuff that people use their tablets for to understand the performance gains in real life scenarios. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to start with the battery because they have the same size battery in both of them, but seeing what the S23 Ultra gained from a battery level over the S22 Ultra, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy gave me high hopes for what this thing was going to do for the Tab S9 Ultra. Now, I know it takes 3 weeks to truly optimize to my usage patterns. I'm aware of that more than pretty much anyone, I would imagine. So I take these battery tests right at the start with a pinch of salt. That being said, the Tab S9 Ultra straight out of the box just surprised me with how good it handled everything I threw at it compared to the Tab S8 Ultra. So to run this test, I took both tablets off charge at the exact same time on an afternoon. My idea was I was going to do the exact same pieces of work on both tablets simultaneously. That way I truly got an understanding over the course of my usage what the battery drain would be like compared to one another. I started by catching up on my favorite YouTube content. I had some stuff I wanted to watch. You can find their links in the description to those channels: Alex Kieran Tech, Marty's Beer Show, and David Lewis Talking Tech. Very enjoyable content. Go give them a watch. I also had some notes I wanted to write down for work. And again, I did this side by side equally. I would switch back and forth after an equal set of time on both tablets. Before I went to host trivia, which I host on Wednesday nights, I started noticing the Tab S9 Ultra pulling away from the Tab S8 Ultra. It was small at first, but I definitely noticed it. Like, it started during the videos and then slowly started gaining more and more of a lead as the night went on. Because when I'm at trivia, I don't just read out questions and have fun. I also do scoring, and that's probably the most laborious part of the job. And to record all the scores, I use the tablets. So I was swapping round by round, one tablet for one round, one for the other. Must have looked odd, the things we do as YouTubers. By the end of the night, the Tab S8 Ultra had gone down to 87%, whilst the Tab S9 Ultra was only down to 92%. After night one, there was a 5% gap already. The next morning, I woke up and it hadn't really depleted too much overnight. So before I started my job, I wanted to do some video ideas and jot them down on the tablets. So again, I worked independently, separately, but at the same time on both. The gap after this was completed opened up to 7%. Later on, I did some editing using LumaFusion. I'll get to that in a little bit, but after both devices got edited on at the same time with the same cuts, the same transitions, everything happened exactly the same, exporting at the same time, the gap still maintained. So that didn't really add anything else to it. What I noticed though was later on that evening when I did some more work on some more video ideas, the gap widened to 10%. So that's where I ended it, because after a full day of usage, you can see side by side the screen on time, exactly the same, the app usage is the same, and there was a 10% gap in battery, and that's before it's optimized for my usage. So it's going to be scary good once this thing decides to learn how I use the tablet and optimizes its performance to match it. There were things I noticed while I was conducting this battery test regarding other areas of performance, which I think were massive areas of improvement. First thing was when I was editing the videos, I needed to get the videos off my phone onto the devices to edit in LumaFusion. I did this using QuickShare. I shared the files. What I noticed was that the QuickShare speed on the Tab S9 Ultra was pretty much 3 or 4 times faster than the Tab S8 Ultra was. I was blown away by how quickly it shared that file, 4K video, from my phone to the Tab S9 Ultra. It was exponentially faster, and you can see it. I have not sped this up. This was real time. I ran it a few times, and each time the 2-minute 4K video file just flew onto the Tab S9 Ultra. I was very impressed. The second part to this is after I finished editing and I exported the video files off LumaFusion, the speed at which the Tab S9 Ultra did it, again, exponentially faster than the Tab S8 Ultra. So not only have we got a chipset that is more powerful and faster, but it is also more efficient, because whilst it did all of this stuff at a faster rate, it did it while using and consuming less power. The other smaller things like Samsung DeX was definitely opening and closing a lot snappier. That's one thing that I've always had, not a gripe with, but I've definitely been aware of it, is that Samsung DeX would open and close, I wouldn't say a painfully slow process, but it definitely wasn't fast. Whereas with the Tab S9 Ultra, it's a much quicker process now, which I was very grateful for. Bottom line, that your day-to-day performance tasks will be sped up and made better, and you can do it for longer because it's got the new, more efficient chipset, thanks to the Tab S9 Ultra Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. The last ways go into some software features. A lot of these are One UI 5.1.1, so this applies to Fold 5, Flip 5, and any other device, and I think it's even now One UI 6 beta. The taskbar at the bottom, you can now expand this to 4 recent apps at the bottom. I appreciated this. I said it in my Fold 5 impressions video, or the hands-on video, that I think 2 was limiting. A lot of people are doing more than 2 things, or having more than 2 apps open in the background that they're using at the same time on a device like this. So having the option to increase it to 4 in the settings does expand how much more productive you can be. The other aspect too is tying into taskbar. If you drag an app into a pop-up window and you're, let's say, moving in and out of that app, but you're not ready to just close it, you could just flick it over to the side and it will stay there as a tab. Again, making use of that real estate of the display, and you could drag it back out when you need it. I think that's going to be really handy for group conversations when you're maybe watching a lecture, or if you're watching a football match, or if you're just doing something where you need to quickly bring it back out, enter in some text and drag it back. That'll really make a lot of sense. And partnerships. Samsung know and are aware that Android tablets is not well supported from apps. A lot of that's down to the fact that Android tablets in general just don't get developer support. Samsung are really pushing with partners to attempt to change that. Last year it brought in LumaFusion. This year LumaFusion's back, but now with a free subscription, I think for 12 months. GoodNotes is the same. You get a pro subscription to GoodNotes with the Tab S9 Ultra. Also on board, and I think you get a 6-month trial, is Clip Studio Paint. They're all part of the Galaxy Pix folder, and it just is a partner that Samsung are working with to optimize apps that are sort of cross-platform onto the Android and tablet platform through Samsung. If you'd like a GoodNotes versus Samsung Notes video, let me know, because one of them is paid and very cross-platform. The other one is free, but limited to Samsung's ecosystem. So let me know if you want to know the balance between them. Happy to put together a video. I'll add it to the long list of videos that I'm putting together at the moment. But that's it for this week. These 2 devices, this one in particular, I am glad that I've upgraded to it. I know that I got a lot out of the Tab S8 Ultra. I really enjoyed my time with it. When you add things like IP68, better battery efficiency, and a processor that will definitely be future-proofed for a number of years to come, I'm really excited to add extra things into my workflow using the Tab S9 Ultra. I've got a lot more coming. I have my Flip 5. I have a Watch 6 Classic. I've got plenty of content planned just for you. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, hit the little bell icon, and between now and my next video, come hang out with me on X and Instagram, and I'll see you next week. Yo!